The American people don't trust the words coming out of your mouth. Every day you appear on TV, you do more damage than good when it comes to educating the public on COVID.
I am disappointed, as I said, by the testing challenges that we're facing. Tests are hard to find. They're costly. People are unable to find the at-home tests.
This administration has time and again squandered its opportunities. You ask the American people to trust you. Quite frankly, you've lost their trust. I'm at the end of my rope. I think you'll see today that most of my colleagues are as well.
Republicans and Democrats in the Senate questioning Drs. Fauci and Walensky and being very critical. And some of the substantive answers that came back on specific questions also were confusing. Here's Senator Mitt Romney.
We're in a room right now. I'm sure someone here has Omicron. Are we all exposed and therefore need to get tested? What does it mean to be exposed, and when do we need to get tested?
If you are exposed to an individual with known, if you are in a period of 15 minutes at a time or a total of 15 minutes over a 24-hour period in a situation where you come into close contact.
In terms of who should get tested, you should get tested if you have symptoms of COVID-19.
Okay, so which is it? Let's bring in our panel. Syndicated radio host Hugh Hewitt, Morgan Ortagus, former State Department spokesperson, and Harold Ford Jr., former Tennessee Congressman, CEO of Empowerment and Inclusion Capital. Hugh, what was your take of this hearing today?
This was a low moment, Brett, for Dr. Fauci. He's had an honorable career. He's been much honored. But when you're calling the senator from Kansas a moron, he did that with Dr. Marshall, and you're arguing with Dr. Paul, Senator Paul, you've lost the two doctors on the committee. And I thought it was particularly inappropriate for Dr. Fauci to bring up the assaults and threats on his family. Look, it happens to everyone in public life. Dr. Paul was on the softball field in June of 2017 when Bernie Sanders supporter tried to kill dozens of Republicans. He was subsequently assaulted by his neighbor. Dr. Paul doesn't need to be told that it's tough to be in public life. I think Dr. Fauci has reached the end of his productive ability to persuade Americans if he cannot even engage with his critics.
Here's some of that exchange between Senator Paul, Dr. Paul, and Dr. Fauci.
The idea that a government official like yourself would claim unilaterally to represent science, that any criticism of you would be considered a criticism of science itself, is quite dangerous.
You are distorting everything about me. You keep coming back to personal attacks on me that have absolutely no relevance to reality.
More people have died now under President Biden than did under President Trump. You are the one responsible. You are the architect.
I would like to make something clear to the committee. He's doing this for political reasons.
Harold, Dr. Fauci went on to show Senator Paul's website that says "Fire Fauci" and raising money on the side. There is a question about trying to get specifics and how we get forward as a country through this. You know, people looking at that hearing could say this is why they hate Washington.
Well, first, thanks for having me on. And I've watched part of the hearing and share some of Hugh's thoughts about it. Having been in politics and even still a little bit in public life and having had my life threatened, I understand the concerns that Dr. Fauci has, but having never been shot like Representative Scalise, there's certainly a gap. That being said, public health experts, unfortunately, have become today's politicians. I remember a time when you used to go to the doctor, and if the doctor prescribed you or gave you a diagnosis and prescribed you medicine, you believed him or her. We've reached a point now where we're assigning political labels to the kind of public health advice we get from public health experts. If we like them, they generally are probably in our party. If we don't like them, they are generally advising on things that we think the other party might be doing. That's a low moment. Particularly when you hear today that North Korea has tested a second missile that travels 10 times the sound of speed. The Russians are massing troops, hundreds of thousands, maybe on the border of Ukraine or at the border of Ukraine. And obviously, China is preparing to treat parts of the South Sea and others in the world differently than we'd like for them to. We need to stop politically kneecapping each other. The one thing public health experts all agree on is that we should all get vaccinated and we should all get boosted if your health allows you to do that. That's what will reduce hospitalizations and reduce deaths. I think the one thing that came out of the hearing, Brett, that I found incredibly interesting, and I'm hearing more and more public experts say this, some are saying that Omicron is fading and receding. Dr. Walensky was not challenged Collins today when she said that this is just the latest variant, and we should all expect another variant and another mutation in the near term.
Oh, joy. Morgan, this is Senator Susan Collins from Maine, specifically trying to track down the money. Take a listen.
Our staff's investigation found that $850 million out of the testing budget and another $850 million out of the allocation for the stockpile were instead used to deal with the crisis at the southern border. I think that this is a problem that has contributed to the shortage of testing.
Yeah, and you've got $1.9 trillion that was passed in a COVID relief bill. Tracking down where all that money goes when you have Chicago saying, you know, the Public Teachers Union saying we're not going back to school is quite something.
Yeah, and Senator Collins was right on the money in that exchange in her line of questioning. I think it's very simple here that President Biden should be held to the same standard that he asked President Trump to be held to in the 2020 campaign. In March of 2020, President Biden, then candidate Biden, often criticized President Trump and said, "Where are the tests?" He tweeted this several times. He talked repeatedly about how he thought Trump had no plan to deal with COVID-19, when in fact, when President Biden came into office, he had multiple vaccines available, and he should have spent year one making sure testing was right on the money. That's something that he spent the campaign criticizing President Trump for. And he should have made sure in year one to continue Operation Warp Speed, to get more vaccines and therapeutics available, to tackle the variants that we all knew were inevitably coming. And so here we are 3 years into a pandemic, and we've seen all of our institutions over the past, I would say, 5-6 years, all of our institutions have been politicized, Brett. We've seen the intelligence community politicized. We've seen the Department of Justice politicized. We've seen the Defense Department politicized. And now public health has been politicized. And Dr. Fauci, the performance today was just below the expectations of a nonpartisan civil servant. If he wants to run for office, he should go file and run for office.
All right, Hugh, Harold mentioned China very quickly. We're getting ready for the Olympic Games, yet they're locking down cities in China.
It's crazy. It's crazy to go to the Olympics. Not only is there a genocide underway in China, it's 62 miles to one 14 million person city that's been locked down now. Sending our athletes there when China routinely lies about every aspect of this virus, from the time it came upon us until the moment of yesterday, is just nuts. The games should be postponed.